Welcome to today's broadcast of North Idaho College Public Forum. The crew is comprised of NIC television students, and your moderator is North Idaho College political scientist Tony Stewart.
One of our very favorite topics on this program is to talk about other parts of the world and the culture and life in those countries, and we're very fortunate from time to time to have people from the Northwest who have made those visits. Today we have two guests who have recently been to Indonesia, and we're going to talk about what they saw there and that culture, and they brought a wonderful display of artifacts with them to our program. I'm happy to welcome to the program Frank and Lillian Henderson. And Frank is known best probably as chair of the Kootenai County Commissioners, and before that he was mayor of Post Falls, and Lillian's involved in many activities in our county, and we're very happy to have you on the program, and we're excited about discussing your recent trip to Indonesia. And as always, I'm very happy to have regular panelist Janelle Burke, who is an attorney in Idaho, and I shall ask Janelle Burke to commence our questioning about this exciting topic.
This promises to be a great program with all the many things that you brought, but first, Mr. Henderson, can you tell us just where in the world did you go?
It was a part of the world we never expected to go to. We went to the country of Indonesia, and on the island of New Guinea, we went to the western side of that, and it's a province within Indonesia called Irian Jaya. Very remote, totally primitive, and we were in a city called Tembagapura, Indonesian, which when translated means city of copper.
And what goes on there? I take it this is a mining area.
It has at that location the world's largest copper mine and also the highest assaying copper ore.
And Mrs. Henderson, what was the reason that you went there?
We have a son who is married and has 3 children, and about a year ago he told us that he was going over to Irian Jaya to work, and we did find out that the immediate family of the mining people are allowed to go over there. And the more that he wrote and his wife had written to us about the life there, things they do, and they sent us videotapes, it just got so enticing that we decided maybe this was the time we should do something like that.
So you were visiting your son and his wife and his children too.
Right.
And the children go to school. There is a community there, I take it. And
yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
The city of Tembagapur, or the village, whatever we want to call it, has a population of about 4,000 to 5,000 people, and they do have 2 schools there, and one for the expatriates, the American children and Australian, that goes through grades 8. They also have an Indonesian school there through the high school grades.
And Mr. Henderson, can you tell us a little bit about the mining? I know that there are other families there that are from the region. Can you tell us something about the mining that goes on there?
It represents all types of mining. There's open pit mining, there is shaft mining as we would know it in North Idaho, and it was really kind of fun because there were 3 or perhaps 4 North Idaho families from the Silver Valley whom we met up there, and they're good friends of our son, and he had worked with a couple of these people before up in when he was with Hecla. Our son's a mining engineer, and he did discover 7 other graduates from the University of Idaho School of Mining.
We want to get right into some of the cultural features that you observed while you were there. I think you were there for, was it close to a month?
3.5 weeks.
3.5 weeks. Frank, would you take us through some of the experiences about how they're structured and organized as a society? And I know that you have some things to say about their agriculture and their eating habits and their customs and the conflicts they have between groups. Would you just do a dissertation for us on life in that region?
We found it to be very structured, and it was interesting to us to witness that. Within the American or expatriate community, for instance, it found very close allegiance among those people because of all the things they had in common. But even among those, degreed people had better housing than non-degreed people, even though they might be working side by side and have families that played together. But if you had a degree, you were entitled to a single-family house. If you didn't, you were in a duplex. And so we started seeing something of a caste system there. In the Indonesian group, the Indonesians were all housed in one area. We really, truly enjoyed many of the Filipinos that we met there. Kind, gentle, sensitive people. And we did live next door to a Philippine engineer. Very fine person. Then you left that very high-pressure community, which is just focused on the mine. We'd hike out of town, and suddenly you were in a total jungle. Total. Absolutely isolated. No newspapers, no radio, no telephone, no communications at all. And you're with the natives. You just hike down a trail, and all of a sudden you feel something, look around, and there's a native walking behind you real quietly. Very friendly people. It turned out to be quite comfortable.
You also learned something of their customs, the role of women and men within the native population, and also I'd like you to talk a little bit about the conflict and how they battle, or how what we call war.
Well, they do have wars occasionally. They haven't had a war there for a long time, and you have to credit the missionaries for that. There have been missionaries there since the early 50s, and we were fortunate to meet two of them. The natives used to have wars, and they fought with bows and arrows and spears, and still would if there was a reason for it. The most common reason to have a war is that if some native or neighboring village person would come over and steal someone's wife or daughter, or even worse, come and steal somebody's pig. Now that guarantees a war if you steal a pig, because a pig is a sign of affluence. And within a village, whoever owns the most pigs is the chief. And you trade pigs. In a marriage, the bride is expected in her dowry to have at least one pig. So that's the wealth, is the number of pigs.
Okay. You've brought some things with you that I know, and we're going to get a look at some. In fact, I want to hold up some things that we have here on the table. And Lee, and I know when you came in, you brought most of the things that are here on the table, and I asked you to identify some of these and what they mean. And I know when Frank came, there's some other things that we'd ask about. But I'm going to hold up a couple of things here. Would you describe these for us?
Frank commented that the people are very friendly. And what you're holding there is one of a pair of carved heads, Balinese heads, that were given to us by the local baker. He was just delighted that we came from the United States. They do like Americans. And so as a gift, he just presented us with that head, with those two heads. This was another gift that was given us. It's carved from one piece of wood, and comes from one of the other islands. I'm not sure which one that one came from, whether it was Balinese or not. But they look at the colors in the wood and then do something with it to make it very artful.
It's just so beautifully done, and it's so artistic. Did they give you any history behind any of these pieces?
It's very difficult for us to speak with a lot of these people, because basically their language is Indonesian as their primary language, and we knew a few words, but as far as being able to converse with them, we really couldn't do that.
I hope they can get a shot of the table, because on the table we have a lot of other things that I do not hold up, and I can see where you're seeing those now. If you could just describe some of these. They have some beautiful cloth here, and I see beads on the fan on the table. Just take us through some of those items.
I'll just start with this one here. This is called a Flores cloth, and it was a gift, again, that was given us. And from what I understand, the Flores cloths are made by first dyeing the yarn, much as you would tie-dye. And then after the yarns are dyed, then they're woven. And these are hand-loomed. This one and the blue one, which was also a gift and is also a Flores cloth. The turquoise and white cloth back there is a batik tablecloth that I bought. This is another batik tablecloth that was given us. The fan is another batik.
And there's a large fan that's showing that's on the floor here.
Is there another one down there?
The very large fan.
Okay, that's also a batik fan, and I purchased that one primarily because those are the islands of Indonesia there on that. This is a silver bracelet that I think if you read the newspaper, we had our 40th wedding anniversary while we were there, and Frank bought that as a gift for me. That's made by rice farmers in Ujung Pandang, and they make that with sterling silver wire. And so evidently when the rice is at a point they can't work the fields, they do this type of artwork.
You have two other pieces that I'd like you to take us through, the one that's sitting here on the table, and then there's one down on the floor.
Those are two of our favorites. Those were carved by the Asmats, who have been known as the headhunters of New Guinea and Indonesia. That one there, you see, we have seen several carved much like that. There's another one I would like to have brought back that had 4 men in a circle. This one down here is also Asmat carving, is an Asmat carving. And could I show the back side of it? He has another figure on his back. And while we were there, we did see a video that someone had about the Asmats, and we believe that that's a carving that signifies mending of a war. If the offended person will accept a child from the other tribe and carry him on his back, that means that the conflict is over. And so I was hoping that that was what that indicated, because it was right after we had seen the film, and I thought, oh, wouldn't that be nice to have?
Frank has also brought some things, and I know this is more from past history than some of the things that we've looked at. But actually between Janelle and Frank, we have on the wall here that we hope to get a shot of that in a moment. And Frank, would you tell us what this is here, please?
Well, what we have here are some artifacts that we got directly from the natives when we hiked down to the native village. And this is, these are arrows, and they still use these today. We walked down the trail and we met a native who had his bow and his arrows just like this, and he was out for his morning hunt. And there's various types here. This one with the blunt end is for birds. They just want to knock the bird out. They don't want to injure the meat or the feathers. They use this blunt arrow. Here's another one that's for birds. It has something like this. They put a little stone in there. Oh. When it hits the bird, then the stone goes boing and the bird gets knocked out. These other two are for small game, and this is coconut wood, and it's carved by the natives, and the white color you see in there is really ash from a fire. So all native made. This one, Tony, I suppose, I like this one the best. I'm intrigued by it. This is the one that's called a man arrow. This is the arrow they would use in war. And of course, if you got shot by this arrow, it would hurt, and you'd like to take it out of your body, right? Well, they make it so that you can't do that. If that was stuck in me, I'd pull on it, and it comes apart. So you could pull the shaft off, but the part that's in your body is still there. It has these little barbs on it, but it is made purposely to come apart. So if you're an enemy in war and you get shot, you are in big trouble. But these are artifacts still used today by the natives. This is the bow that they use. The bowstring is rattan, which is a natural inner bark fiber that they harvest. And the spear is used by the Asmat tribe, the headhunters, the cannibals. And they're just renowned wood carvers. So that's what these artifacts are.
Thank you. Janelle Berg.
Well, I have to ask about a couple more things that are on the table. One is the semicircle. It looks to me like it might be carved out of bone. Is that right? or shell?
Well, no, that is the tusk out of a boar.
I see.
And hiking down the trail, I saw this native, and he had this in his nose. And we dickered, and I bought that for a very little bit of money, and he just took it out of his nose and gave it to me. That's a current piece of jewelry that the natives wear.
And I also have to ask about the bands that are here on the table, because you indicated that that's something that some men would be wearing.
Yes, they do wear these. These are armbands, which they would wear up here. This one is made from native materials. That's rattan, which is woven. And then this one is so colorful, it just mystified us till we found out that these villagers lived close to the mining town, and they had access to the mining town's dump. They went there and they got old telephone cable, took out the colorful wires, and they wove that the same way they wove the native things. And it's just wonderful work. It's just real precise. And so we were able to acquire those on that hike we took down to the village.
And you were saying that those are used for decoration, somewhat like we would use bracelets, and that they even stuck some flowers in it. Is that correct? Might decorate them further. And they also wore headbands. Is that correct? Or
no,
not
they would put
headbands?
flowers. I think they were palm tree blossoms. They would put in the hair was sort of puffed, black, fuzzy hair. They would put flowers, the men especially, in their hair.
And Mrs. Henderson, can you explain the beads? Because I think that's something that might be the women would have been wearing.
The women all wore beads. A lot of the men did also. We have two different kinds there. The gray ones are seeds, and we purchased those on our hike. Somebody had them, and with a little bargaining, why we were able to buy those. And the others, a friend of ours was able to obtain for us, and those are made with cowrie shells, seeds, and bamboo. And cowrie shells are used for trading as a means of money for them.
Well, it's been very interesting talking to you about the different customs of the people. Can you tell us some more about your adventure when you went down hiking? I know Mr. Henderson used some money here for trading. What did you use to attract the natives and the children?
Whenever someone goes to the villages, they do take candy for the children. And so we bought quite a bit of it and took it along. And the natives smoke. The men smoke, and they really like cigarettes. So our son also took along cigarettes, and when we got to the village, our son said, well, the popular white folk are in town, because all of the children know that they're going to get something. It's a very difficult hike. It would be nicer to take oranges or apples, but this was the most convenient thing, and the children all wait their turn, and you pass the candy out piece by piece, and they always are certain that the little ones are there to get their share.
Okay. Now, another question that I just have to ask you on this hike was there any danger from animals? I take it you're in the jungle, and you're on a trail, but that's about it. Is that correct? And Mr. Henderson, maybe you can explain.
No, we didn't see anything that was dangerous. I've been in the outdoors a lot, so I would be aware. But no, there were no animals. There are no. The only real animals that are there, other than the wild boar, would be some rodents, and it would not represent a danger. There are poisonous snakes around, but we did not see any, nor were we warned of them. And the natives are totally friendly. We understand there is a rebel group there and may have been mixed in with that population, but we couldn't identify. We were very comfortable, but of course our son had been there before us and had identified the fact that it was safe, so we felt pretty secure.
Now, how far was this trip to the native village? Approximately, how far did you have to walk?
It was about 3.5 miles one way, and it was a very strenuous trip.
And uphill and down, is that what you mean by strenuous, or was it strenuous in some other way? Was it very warm?
It was humid, reasonably warm, maybe about mid-70s. But it's not a path. It's rocks that are wet, they're slimy, some logs over some of the more muddy areas. It's on the side of a mountain. So we were walking pretty much with, one leg a little taller than the other. So it was really a very strenuous hike, and we did go down quite a long distance. And then, of course, once you're down there, then you still have to come back up again.
Mr. Henderson, I see you smiling. Do you have something you want to add there?
Oh, I thought the highlight was when we started back, we had gone down into the valley, the bottom of the canyon, across the river, and then we had to go across a bridge. And this bridge was about this wide, and it had a concave surface like this, and it was a log is what it was. And it rains 200 inches a year there, so moss and slippery stuff grows on everything. And this log was about 20 or 25 feet long, and it went across a drop down to a river running underneath us of 15 or 18 feet. I walked up to it the first time. I took 2 steps on it. I turned around and went back and said, I have to think this over. Well, there was a whole bunch of natives watching, and I didn't want to chicken out and walk down and walk through the stream to get across. So I went across it very carefully. It was very slippery. Then Lil went across, and an Irian was helping her. And of course, we were very cautious about this. And the video I have is so funny. And walking right behind Lil is about a 3-year-old youngster walking just so nonchalantly as we would here walking down the sidewalk. And here we are just shaking in our boots to do this. It was great fun. We did it. Nobody fell in. It was a challenge.
I want to ask the camera person to do a view of some other, I guess we call them cards that Lillian, that you brought back with you. And I think that how they're made and all is very interesting. I marvel at, again, the great artistic work that you have brought and the talent of the people of the region that you visited. And I know that you don't have a lot of history behind these cards, but I want at least our viewers to see that. I always feel that our viewers would like to be in the studio with us and be able to examine each of these things, so I want to get as much on camera as I can. Would you describe the cards and how they are made or what they're made out of?
They are made on a black velvet background, and they just took rice straw. Now, how they dyed it to make the pink and the green, I don't know, and the rest of it is natural straw. But they are so artistic. They did have some large pictures also available, but I was more taken with these small ones. And so we brought back about 20, 24 of them. And so we will give those to friends eventually.
But you indicate those that you brought back that are small, you could get the same kind, but just in a larger print?
Yeah, well, art done in the same manner, but not necessarily the same as these are that we have here.
And I'm sure much of this has been handed down from one generation to another one, and the gift that goes on. In our own society, there are many people who've had, or we have different cultures within a culture, and a lot of the weaving and so forth has been lost. And so I guess my question is people from other parts of the world have come in and the mining is taking place. Is it, and I guess I should appropriately use this word, is it endangering this culture? Is it endangering this great contributions that they're making to civilization?
We were given a book about Indonesia for Christmas, and I've been reading that, and that is a problem. So many of the islands now are becoming westernized, and not as much of that creative artwork is being done. Or it is no longer being done just because they like to do it. It's being done commercially, and it takes away from it when it's done that way. We understand that the Asmat carvings now are becoming quite rare, and there's a possibility that they will no longer allow them to be sold, and the National Museum will keep all of the Asmat art. So we were fortunate to be able to get the pieces that we did.
Janelle Berg.
I would like to ask a question both for Mrs. Henderson and Mr. Henderson. We'll start with Mrs. Henderson about the role of women in the Indonesian village, and then for Mr. Henderson, what do the men do, and kind of how do they dress, and what is their role? So starting with Mrs. Henderson, what is the role of the woman in the Indonesian village?
The Indonesian women are very quiet, almost subservient, although we didn't really see any strong indication of the subserviency, but they are very gentle, very quiet women. Do they
nurture and take care of the children? I would assume that
very well.
Their role.
They basically stay home and take care of the house.
And the house is a thatched hut?
Well, now we're talking about two different things here. The Indonesian women that I'm referring to are the wives of the men who have come to work at the mine. The others, the natives, are Irian-Jayans.
Okay, the natives. Let's ask about those.
The natives. They have a very segregated society. The men sleep in one hut, or about 8 men sleep per hut. The women sleep in another hut. They seem to take care of the children. The children were very lighthearted. They laughed and they bounced around just like any youngster would. The women do the gardening, which is very difficult gardening. They do have a garden on the mountainside, and that's the hoe.
I'm going to ask our counter this up because you're talking about this now. This is a hoe that they use.
That's right.
And the women
will use that to do the gardening. Yes. They grow primarily sugarcane, yams, and another root vegetable, and that's primarily their diet.
And what do the men do then? What is the role of the man?
The men hunt, and there was no fishing where we were, but if they were closer to the ocean, they'd be fishermen. The men, frankly, see that the women get their job done.
and so the children are kind of cared for then in a multi-family group. Mm-hmm. Is that what you would take it to be? It
seemed like a large commune, but they were so friendly, they mixed so well, they cared for each other. We're just really amazed at what a friendly village each one was.
And what kinds of you mentioned their diet, what kinds of clothing then would they wear? As little as possible, I suppose.
Since the missionaries have come, both the missionaries, I take that back, the missionaries in the mine, they are now wearing more Western clothes. Some of the people in Tembagapura, the mining village, will gather clothing for them. They will also go to the dump and scrounge things from the dump and wear whatever combination they can get. Some of the men don't wear anything but a gourd, which is their traditional dress. They will wear a lot of beads, the women will. They will wear grass skirts, or since they can find the visqueen and black trash bags, they will use that and make strips from that and make a grass type skirt of that material.
And that would probably be very handy in very rainy weather also, I would imagine.
It wouldn't get wet.
And blankets and that sort of thing they would also pilfer from the mining company dump.
We didn't see any. They may have done that. Some Western things are getting into their society, and it's not always good for them. Mm-hmm. One thing we learned about them wearing Western clothes is it creates a health problem for them.
I'm going to have to interrupt. We're out of time. I wish we could continue the program, but you have been very informative and have brought great items with you, and we've had a wonderful time talking with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you've enjoyed our program and that you'll be with us again next week at the same time when we will discuss what we believe to be an important topic. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
North Idaho College Public Forum can be seen at the same time each week over this station. This production was videotaped earlier by an NIC student crew for viewing at this more appropriate time.